Assalamualaikum and good evening to Madam Jurida and my fellow friends. I am SHAFIQAH ELEENA. And my team members, RATTNA, NURUL, NADRAH, Chen, and ZHANG SHENGNAN will be presenting on the book 1897 by Stephen Crane. Okay. Welcome to the late evening show with your one and only host, ELEENA. So thank you for being here and joining us. And thank you to the audience for watching. Well, it's Tuesday and that means more info and insights for your entertainment. Today, we have invited 4 honorable guests to discuss the novel entitled The Open Book. So, without any further ado, let me introduce our guest for today. Director Li Ping is a movie director. Dr. RATTNA is a senior lecturer of Faculty of Education from UPM. Professor NADRAH, literature professor from UPM. And last but not least, Miss SHENGNAN, the actress for the movie.
Hi.
Okay, so hi. Okay, so hope all of you are in a good all of you are in the pink of health. So before I start with the Q&A session with all the guests, I would like to give a summary of this novel. Okay, so this open book is a short story by Stephen Crane, in which 4 men are stranded in the Mosquito Island inlet. So 4 men are forced to flee in an open boat where their ship is sink. The captain is injured while the other 3 others must row to the safety. So the cook tells them to a safe haven on Mosquito Island inlet. So they spend days rowing to the island. During the harrowing journey to the shore, one of the men dies. So the other 3 men live and feel that they have learned a lesson about the survival. And now it's time for all of our guests for today to introduce themselves in detail to the audiences. So we'll start with Dr. RATTNA. Hi, Dr. RATTNA.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so good evening to all of you. So basically, my name is Dr. RATTNA KAANTHAN. I'm currently working as a senior lecturer at UPM under the Faculty of Education. So actually, I've been teaching literature for the past about 10 years. So I'd like to pass on to Professor NADRAH. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. RATTNA and Miss Moderator. Yeah, I feel humble and honored to be invited to this forum. I am Professor NADRAH Emeritus. I am also from University Putra Malaysia. And I have 20 years experience in teaching literature. So I am compelled to share this amazing story with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor NADRAH. Next to Director Li Ping.
Hi, thank you for your invitation. Hello, everyone. I'm Chen Ping, a new young director. Maybe you don't know me yet, but I believe that when my new movie, The Open Board, is released, through the wonderful film, everyone will have a deeper understanding of me, especially my skills in framing. Thank you.
You're welcome, Director Li Ping. Move to our actress, Miss SHENGNAN.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is SHENGNAN. I played the role of correspondent in this film. It's my honor to attend the forum. Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you to all of you for the introduction. So before we proceed to more in depth of this novel, I would like to ask questions to Dr. RATTNA. Could you share with us the background of the author of this open boat?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the title of this short story is The Open Boat. And the author's name is actually Stephen Crane. So he is an American citizen. So he was born in Newark, New Jersey on 1st of November, 1871. So basically, he then pursued his high school at Port Jervis in New York. So basically, Crane then he attended military school at Clayfrack College, where he pursued an interest in Civil War studies. So he later spent some semesters at Lafayette College and then carried on to Syracuse University. During these years, which he was mainly concerned with freelance writing and the prospect of becoming a novelist. So in 1891, Crane then he moved to New York City, where he supported himself by writing for the New York Tribune. So basically in 1897, Crane decided to leave New York to become a war correspondent. Basically, while covering the Cuban Revolution, Crane met Cora Taylor, the landlord of a Florida hotel and a brothel center. So the couple then eventually moved to England as common husband and wives. So while covering the war in Cuba in 1897, Crane was shipwrecked at sea off the Florida coast. So due to this, he was stranded at sea for about 30 hours with 3 other men who eventually rowed to shore on a small lifeboat. So one of the men, an oiler named Billy Higgins, drowned in the surf while trying to swim to shore. So Crane then later turned the experience into what many consider his greatest short story, known as The Open Boat in 1897. So basically, for the rest of his life, he continued to work as a journalist and war correspondent, so using his experiences as the basis for his fiction. So, however, he was then unable to return to New York because of his clash with the police. So Crane spent most of his last years in England, where he lived beyond his means. So that's all from me for this part. I'll pass on to ELEENA, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ratna. So since all of us already know the summary and the background of the author of the novel, so now I would like to ask the Professor Nadra. So what is your opinion on this novel, The Open Boat?
Thank you, Miss Elena. Okay, at first, after reading this story, it was a little tough for me to understand the implicit meaning of it, even though the author uses quite a simplistic plot. However, after I read again and again and I did some research, I realized that it's not only a story about 4 men surviving in a boundless sea. Okay, it is more about the nature and the relationship between them and how the nature actually acts like. And the ending of the story also was a bit unpredictable too. Personally, I don't really like the ending, but it is what it is. We have to accept the indifference of nature to their situation and the feeling. And I think Stephen Crane is a great author because in just a few pages of irony and metaphor, he managed to address both the shortcoming and strength of these 4 men. Okay, we follow their efforts to get to the shore after they have spotted land, but they became discouraged as they realized that no rescue coming, and their fate is fully controlled by uncaring universe. So there are sorrow, fear, frustration, and desperation along the way. And I also like the way the author introduced the characters, because he's suggesting in the process each of their roles on the boat. Even though they are exhausted from their efforts to stay alive, they still abide by a hierarchy. For instance, the captain who is injured gives directions, while the cook bails out the water collecting at the bottom of the boat. The correspondent and the oiler take turns at the oar. So they know their own role. Okay, even though they didn't say it aloud, they value the sense of brotherhood that has developed among these desperate men. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Nadra, for the insights. So next, I would like to ask our Miss Director, Director Li Ping, what do you think of this novel and what inspired you to direct this movie?
Yeah, the first time I came into contact with this novel was when I was in literature class. The Open Boat is a famous novel Stephen King, known as a wizard in the history of American literature. In 1896, Stephen King went to Cuba for an interview, and the ship entered a storm on the way. Based on this experience, he wrote a short story, The Open Boat, which meticulously describes the struggles and the battles of the four people in the vast ocean. Yeah, this is a famous short story in America. This novel is very short, but it can bring us a lot of thinking. For example, the relationship between man and the nature, and the decision-making relationship between life and death are all worthy of our consideration. Yeah, at the same time, the novel also used a lot of symbolism, such as the wind tower, symbolizing the power of nature to humans and the indifference to humans. The corresponding bluntly states that this tower is a giant with its spike on the ants' plate, by emphasizing the size of wind towers compared to humans. The corresponding draw attention to the insignificance of humans in the face of the vastness and the power of nature. In addition, the wind tower also symbolizes despair. There are many other symbols in the article which need us to analyze and study carefully.
Okay. So anything else from any one of
Mm,
you?
yeah, sure. In addition, this is a story about humans fighting against the harsh nature environment. I think this theme is very good. It is not only expose the ruthlessness of fear of nature, but also makes people not giving up when facing difficulties.
Agree.
After reading this novel, I thought about it for a long time because I grew up by the sea and often encountered typhoons and scenes of strong winds and waves. Typhoon weather often makes my heart very anxiety. After I always afraid that people will face dangers in the harsh natural environment. Human beings are insignificant in the harsh nature environment, but the four protagonists, the captain, the cook, the oil, and the responsible correspondent, they are still working together after the ship is destroyed and relying on the hope of survival and strong will. They are I think we are strong, wandering non-stop on the sea to survive in the face of such a harsh environment. Each of them is doing everything possible to overcome every obstacle and difficulty. Yeah, and finally survive. I think the theme of this novel is very attractive me to direct this movie. Thank you.
You are mute, ELEENA.
Yeah.
Still mute.
I think maybe Shenan can share
Yeah.
us his opinions because she
Yeah,
is
sure.
my actress in my movie.
Oh, and thank you, my director. Okay, let me talk about novel first. The novel contains numerous examples of symbolism, imagery, and metaphor. Vibrant color descriptions combined with simple, clear writing, and the mood is ironically opposed to a terrible and desperate environment. I'm personally fascinated by this style of writing. The novel is based on Korean's experience as a journal correspondent in his journey to Cuba to survive a shipwreck off the Florida coast earlier that year. Although I don't have a sea voyage experience, I struggle on the edge of and dies personally. So I am interested in this. When it comes to the role of correspondent, I think he has always struggled in his heart. The role is a particularly contradictory one. He has always wanted to give up, but he was not willing to do so, and he was always looking forward to the help of the others. In this play, the correspondent didn't have too much lines, but there were a lot of body language and inner descriptions. It is a test for acting skills. For example, there was a description about finding out the light. At the top of another wave, the correspondent did as he was told. This time his eye found a small, still thing on the edge of the moving ocean. It was exactly like the point of pain. It took an anxious to find a lighthouse so tiny. There is a need for the actor to show a sense of eagerness, and the eagerness is for life, which is different for others. So not only language, but also the body language and my eyes are very important to interpret this emotion. Take another example. As soon as the correspondent touched the cold, comfortable sea water in the bottom of the boat and had pressed close to the cook's side, he was deep in sleep in spite of the cold. I don't think it is easy for actor to show tenderness here. In order to take this scene well, I went to the harbor to observe the sailors who had been working hard all day. I imitated their movements. Last but not least, when I tried to play the feeling of relief and exhaustion at the end of the movie, it just still cost me a lot of time to try. I failed many times to perform naturally. In the script, there is such a description. The correspondent didn't all that happen afterward. When he reached the safe ground, he fell, striking the sand with each part of his body. It was as if he had dropped from a roof. For me, the exhaustion and the total release is difficult to perform. All in all, I must show this man's tenderness, fear, and struggle. It was really not easy. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes. I agree firstly with the Miss Director, Miss Li Ping. The novel is short, but it requires us a lot of thinking, and it needs us to use our critical thinking skills in order to relate the symbolism between the nature and human beings. So, there are many interesting parts in the novel shared by our guest today, and of course, we would like to know more about the characters in this novel, right? So I will briefly share about the characters in this novel. In this novel, we have 4 characters, which are the captain, cook, oiler, and correspondent. So as you guys know, the first character in this novel is the captain. Okay, so this captain injured and not able to help row the lifeboat. Having lost his ship, the captain is feeling more abandoned and also dejected than the other characters. But he feels that it is his duty to guide all of them to the safety. So he makes the decisions for the crew and he provides words of encouragement to the men rowing. So the second character would be the cook. So the cook is described as fat and also untidily dressed. He does not help to row, but he does work steadily bailing the seawater out of the boat. So he is the most talkative man out of the 4 characters and also remains unshakably certain that they will be rescued. So the cook is one of the 3 men who survive, while the oiler, a strong and capable seaman, drowns and served just off the shore as he had worn a life jacket. So the third character is the correspondent. So this character of the correspondent is autobiographical author's own life in nature. So this correspondent is the only character in the story who towards the reader is given direct access. So he recognized that he might drown despite all of his effort to survive, which caused him to consider the disheartening possibility that nature is indifferent to his fate. So in the end, the correspondence did survive, but largely due to sheer luck, whereby it was due to a large wave that carried him into shallow water towards a land. The last character is the oiler. So the oiler is the only character who was named in the story, and the name is given as Billy. So he is the only character in the open book who does not survive the ordeal. He is the most physically fit of the four out of the four characters, and also seems to be the most determined to survive. But as the strongest rower, the oiler also makes the strongest effort to sweep ashore when the boat capsizes in the surf. Yet his effort come to nothing, and he drowned in the shallow water just off the shore. So, as I already discussed briefly about the four characters of this novel, how about Dr. Ratna, Prof. Nadra, Director Liping, and Miss Shannon? So, which character is your favorite in the novel? So, anyone?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Elena. So I would like to speak on behalf of that. Actually, among these four characters, I'm quite interested to discuss more on the character of the cook, as because he's, to me, he's my most favorite character in this novel. So the cook is
Doctor, sorry to interrupt. Do you
yeah.
like the cook because you like to cook?
I'm not a man who knows how to cook basically, but I know how to
Okay.
cook basic food if you ask me. Okay. All right. So the cook is actually basically is a cheerful, chubby man who rides the 10-foot lifeboat alongside the captain, the correspondent, and also the oiler. He's basically responsible for bailing the water out of the boat, while the captain gives orders and the correspondent and the oiler row. So basically, throughout the story, the cook clings tightly to optimism for comfort and frequently voices his certainty of their impending rescue, but is always wrong. So basically, this is some kind of words of encouragement so that you do not give up. So the cook actually serves as a foil to the captain's more practical acceptance of uncertainty. So although eventually pulled from the water by the life-saving man, the cook survived in the sea thanks to the captain. So basically, he's who instructed him to float on his back and use an oar to row himself to the shore. So that's all from me for this part.
Yeah, okay. As for me, my favorite character is Billy the Oiler. No, the only named character in the story. I think the reason why the author gave the oiler a name is to establish a strong connection between the oiler and the readers, as his death will give a greater impact in the end. We are not there yet, anyhow, said the oiler in the stern. So we also see the repetition of preposition in. Okay, the preposition emphasizes the oiler's propensity to work. He has made a greater physical contribution compared to any other characters. Throughout the story, the oiler takes turn rowing with the correspondent and speak very little. He is the most exhausted of the foremen, having worked a double shift of challenging physical labor in the ship's engine room just before the Commodore sunk. So despite his fatigue, he is strong, empathic, and always willing to relieve the correspondent from his rowing shift. So we can see here his hard work and selflessness make reader hope that he deserves to be saved. But unfortunately, in the end of in the last chapter, you can see the passage which explicitly present Billy's death. It clearly shows the unforeseen developments, highlights the sea's misgiving nature. It emphasizes nature's inconsistency And no matter how strong you are, the nature is selected randomly without any thought of any emotions. So that's why I said earlier, I'm not really agree with the ending of the story. It's quite sad. So what about director Li Ping? Who is your favorite character?
For me, I like correspondent. This is a nominal correspondent who survived a shipwreck and was forced to find on the high seas in a 10-foot lifeboat with 3 other men, the captain, the oil, and the cook. In this battle, the correspondent was mainly responsible for taking turns blowing with the oil while fighting against the nature. This character is very emotional because the correspondent has no experience in sailing. He was confused and cursed at this situation at first, but finally he turned into an experience of harvesting combination. He has gained his growth during this sea trip and never maturity turned to maturity and with a new understanding of life and achieving self breakthrough. In the novel, the correspondent has such a theme. The correspondent repeatedly thought, am I going to draw? In this possible, am I going to draw? The repetition of am I going to draw in the novel can be seen. Although the entire experience is only more than 30 hours for the people on board, but it is very long. Every minute and every second, the curse is repeated in the text. However, at the end of the novel, the correspondent repeated in the in the sea trip, but the reporter then from them sacrifice, unity, and caring for others when confronting the ruthlessness and the indifference of nature with his companions. This experience at sea gave he a lot of gains and realized the feelings between people. He changed his indifference to full of affection. It is precisely because the correspondence emotional changes affect readers' emotions. So I like this character in this novel. How about Shennan? Hi, Shennan.
Hi, Chen.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I forgot unmute. I'm sorry. From my perspective, Captain is my favorite show. He was wisdom, brave, experienced, and kind. Each time people fall into disappointment, it is a captain who uses his wisdom to encourage them and start a new plan. Before they finally jumped off the boat and saved by the resident living in the island, they have experienced many alternations of disappointment and hope. Each time, Captain made a new plan for them to survive. For example, when the first disappointment came, he said, sawing her a little moo-nosed Billy. The second time he said, I suppose we will have to make a try for ourselves. If we stay out here too long, none of us will have strength after the boat goes under. The third time the captain saw a floating stick and they rowed to it. A white cloth was by some strange chance in the boat. Trying this on the stick, the captain waved it. The fourth time he said, keep her head up, keep her head up. Keep the light a little to the left. At last, he ordered all people jumped off the boat, and a thing moved me most, the resident of the island who came to save the captain. But he let the rescue go to the correspondent. At last, everyone was saved except the captain. He sacrificed himself to save others. His kindness and fearlessness move me most. He is a hero in my heart. but I have no confidence to successfully play such roles because it needs more acting skills and experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to Professor Nadrah, Dr. Ratna, Director Leping, and also Miss Shengnan. So, Miss Shengnan, can I ask you again, like, which character do you play in the movie?
I played a correspondent.
Oh, you played the correspondent, but your most favorite character is the
Is
captain, is it?
captain. Yes, I hope I have a chance to play the role.
Captain.
So please, Dr. Li Ping, consider me next time. Giving me
Okay.
Yeah,
the
movie director,
actor.
please consider it.
Okay,
Okay.
The opportunity to Miss Shengnan to be the captain.
okay, yeah.
But I
Okay,
think it's
so
low.
I would like to ask to Professor Nadrah, okay, as a literature
Okay.
professor, do you mind sharing with us which part of the novel that you highlight to
Mhm.
students the most?
Okay, thank you for asking me these questions. When I teach my student, I usually highlight two parts. Okay, two parts of the story that I think contain moral value to be instilled in students. We know that the author begins the story by establishing the central conflict of four men struggling not to die as the indifference wave threatened to capsize their boat. So first, I will focus on the part where the captain says that he sees the lighthouse at Mosquito Inlet, and the correspondents urge to turn around and search the horizon for the lighthouse. And the other part is when they see a man on the shore waving at them, but didn't rescue them. But they still being optimistic and continue to ensure their safety in the boat. So these two parts shows the human impulse to latch onto glimmers of hope and optimism, even that hope takes an anxious eye to find. And I will emphasize the importance of having hope as human being can't live without hope. On difficult days, hope inspires us to reach for better and do more. It makes us happier, right? So, like what we have discussed in the previous poem, if you still remember, Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. She also
Yeah.
reminds the readers of the power of hope and how little it requires of people. So, whether we acknowledge it or not, hope has helped most of us go through the hardest time in our life. So second part is I will highlight the story's climax, which is when the author reveals that Billy has drowned. Okay, it says in the passage that in the lower water, face down lay the oiler, his forehead touched sand that was sometimes between each wave above the sea. So we can see here the situation is ironic. Okay, we know that the cook is overweight, the captain injured, and the correspondent is just a simple reporter. But why? Well, even though Billy is the strongest swimmer and the most capable seaman of all, at the end of the story, he was the one did not survive. So this death, Billy's death, illustrates that the story overall thematic concern about nature's indifference towards human. Even though Billy worked the hardest to row the boat, the universe does not reward him for his effort at all. So I really hope that these two parts will give positive impacts in my students' life.
Yeah. Indeed, I agree with you, Professor Nadra, that this novel highlights the positive values that should be emphasized to the students. So, well, we are having fun sharing about the novel, and it seems that we are getting close to the end of our time together. So, I think if you have maybe any last words to tell to the audience, how about we start with Dr. Ratna? Or Professor Nadra, or our movie director, Miss Liping, or our actress, Miss Shengnan. Or maybe the audience, do you have anything to ask to our guest today?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to talk on two uh, two objects that are related to symbolism. Is that fine?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
Sure, Doctor.
basically, yeah,
Sure.
thank you. So basically, if you see here, I find that these two objects are related to symbolism. Like number one is the boat, and number 2 is the cigars. Okay, so the boat, if you see here, it's to which the man had to cling to survive the seas. Basically, this symbolizes human life hopping along among the universe uncertainties. So I could relate this to the current situation, like we are going through the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so our hope is the vaccine, of course. So the same concept is applied here. So the boat, which is no larger than a bathtub and seems even smaller against the vastness of the ocean. So the boat is not even a kind of boat which you could see in the movies or what. It's just a small lifeboat. Okay, so the boat is insignificant and always in danger of capsizing. So much as we as humans are insignificant and frail in the context of the world around us. Okay, so the phrase that the boat is characterized as open supports the interpretation that the boat is actually an unprotected object. So thus, this results to open to suffering the unpredictable turns of fortune that are quite unavoidable in life. Okay, so for the men, being in the open boat becomes the reality of their lives. So, and they realize from their experience that being on the boat, how little control that they have over where they can go and what they can do. So through the boat, Crane implies that life is not something that we can actually take control over. So, but rather life is what we must hang on to and not to give up as we pave our way in the world. So what basically it means here is, let's say if you wake up today, it's not going to say that you're going to wake up tomorrow. So you have no control over what is happening the day after tomorrow or even for the next second. So this is a very good lesson which I would take into consideration. So the cigars here, I would like to talk about the cigars. This is quite interesting. So the 4 wet cigars and 4 dry cigars, they serve as a complex symbol of hope for spiritual redemption. Okay, and as the extreme loss of that redemption. So when the correspondent actually finds the cigars in his pockets, Crane makes it clear that there are 2 interpretations of the man's circumstances. So first, like the 4 sodden cigars, which means the cigars had been soaked, the 4 men are physically and spiritually soaked by the heavy, demoralizing forces of nature. So due to the nature, okay, so they are quite broken and they feel useless. So second, like 4 dry cigars hidden deep inside the correspondent's pocket, there is something inside the man that remains untouched by the cold. Okay, so drenching miserably that the sea contributes to. So at the moment, when the correspondent digs through his pocket, the men are likely to see themselves optimistically as the 4 dry cigars because their cooperation and hard work has seemingly put them on a track to defeat nature. So end of the story, the men's confidence is not intact. They feel misery, not triumph. Okay, so the wet cigars are more appropriately illustrates the tragedy of the men's spirits. So basically, what we could see here is from the story of the cigar is teamwork is very important, especially in a, if you're working in a team, it doesn't matter what kind of tasks that you're doing. So this kind of teamwork is needs to be implemented and need to be taken seriously. So in order for you to achieve a certain goal. So that's my opinion based on these 2 symbolisms. So that's all from me.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Dr. Ratna. And can I share my thought about the theme?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, since many other lecturers ask me why do I choose this novel to teach my students. So I think the main reason why I choose this novel to my student is because first the story is based on the real life experience, and one of the shipwreck survivor was the author. So it is quite interesting. To me, a real life story is inspiring, and it's involved real events, okay, people and location. And other than that, the theme, because I think the theme of the stories is suitable for any level of age. Okay, it is suitable to be taught in school, even in school. Okay, first, the central theme of the story, which is man versus nature, can inspire students to learn how to remain vigilant and united against the violence of nature to survive. I can also relate this to what happened to the world nowadays. I can relate this to the pandemic that hit us. It is nature too, right? So we know that every year the number of people being infected and dying increase every day. Okay, some people losing job, and then they are facing with mental health and whatsoever. So by learning about how important, how to deal with nature, at least the students will be able to survive. Okay, they will never give up. Okay, even though they follow the SOP, but still being infected, there's no reason to give up. Okay, we keep on doing whatever best for us. And second thing is the solidarity. Okay, the theme of the story is solidarity. It is also important to instill this value in students to build their mutual care and concern for justice. Okay, if you can see, one of the passages shows that the four men recognize their individual survival depends upon a mutual agreement to support each other. Okay, you know that as the saying goes, no man is an island. No one is truly self-sufficient. We need to rely, how no matter how strong you are, we need to rely on others in order to thrive in this world. So it shows that solidarity is what enables them to maintain sanity, support each other, and cooperate. And finally, what makes this story interesting is that I like the shifting moods throughout the story. Okay, uh, if you read the story, the mood on the boat shifts several times depending on the condition of the men find themselves in. You know, they begin in despair but become cheery when they believe their rescue is imminent. So then the mood dips into bitterness with the realization that rescue isn't coming. So this is make the story interesting. The shifting mood capture how elements of nature dictate the man's emotion. Okay, this motif also speaks to the mutual understanding the men share. So I think these shifting moods are related to the dramatic irony where the author reveals that, contrary to the man's hope, there is no life-saving station for 20 miles in either direction. So the reader understands that even the reader understands that the characters are is more danger than they recognize themselves. So I really hope that these themes will help my students to reach a new understanding of some aspect of the human condition. So what about the other?
Hmm. I think what I want to say in the end of our interview is I think I make novel more interesting because my movie gives the audience a visual impact and a deeper understanding of the novel in my movie. For example, I will shoot the huge waves in the novel with more facial effect so that the audience is immersed on the scene as if the audience is on a scene. The waves near shore are too powerful for the boat, so the oil rolls back to the deeper waters, and the waves make a preparted and long glow, as one of the men says gloomily that the life-saving people must have seen them by now. The sky is filled with brown and red clouds, like smoke boiling out of the burning building. The waves sound like a wild animal about to pounce a pride, indicating that nature has the upper hand. Someone, perhaps a cook, gloomily repeats the optimistic statement that these people will be found and rescued soon. But it feels like a continuation of false hope. Here, the cook's desire for hope can be realized, and the people can pray for them. This can only be imaged in the novel, but in my movie, I can give intuitive feelings, and they will be attracted by my movie. It is an interesting movie. Okay, I want to recommend my movie. Please, all of you to watch it. Okay.
Of course, I
How,
will watch the
eh,
movie.
Yes,
yeah.
of
How
course.
about
I
Sena?
will
Definitely.
support you directly, Ping.
Yeah.
Thank you. And how about my actress? What do you want to say about our movie?
Okay. Thank you, director. When I read the novel, I was attracted by the description of the author, and I admire the author's ability to describe psychology, characters, and things. Such the description like this. But a quiet and white ship was carried up the beach, and the lion's welcome for it could only be the different sand and the silent one of the grave. In fact, the author just want to tell us the captain died. And another example, this tower was a giant standing with its back to the danger of small creatures. This sentence just tells us the correspondent felt hopeless. Although she can see the tower, but he can't find out anyone from the tower to help him. As an actor, it's the most interesting part that can express these descriptions in the form of film art. Besides, I contact some of the experience of my life. I try to show this desperate but still struggling mood naturally. For example, I want to highlight the most challenged part, which was when I knew my friend Captain died. I have to perform what kind of emotion, which completely need my own understanding and performance, because there is not even a conversation between the actors or the monologue from the correspondent in the script. There was not too much description of how people feel when they knew the bad news, which makes the performance more difficult. Everything needs to be felt by myself. My understanding is that I have to show sadness, blaming myself, and do not want to believe it at the same time. All in all, it's a good chance to improve my acting skills. I hope audience can like the role I played. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, please support Miss Shengnan in the movie.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anything else from all of you?
Yeah, I do have something to add on. Yeah, so basically, I would like to relate this story to my personal experience. So basically, I would like to share during my days as a university student. Okay, so I enrolled myself in the voluntary civil defense unit. So it was basically like part of a 5 days training. So whereby we were just given a bottle of water, a kind of a rainbow knife, and a small bag of salt, which is smaller than the size of our palm. So basically, we use these to survive with our teammates. And basically, it was in the middle of a very thick jungle. Okay. So we had to survive on what we had. And during those times only where I learned to value time, food, money, and facilities. Of course, in the jungle, you can't find facilities such as aircon or even a fan, this kind of facilities. Yeah. So at the same time, we were in close call with wild animals. Okay. And we had been chased too. So during those tough times, we worked as a team. And that's the time I learned the true meaning of teamwork and looking out for each other. So basically, in my personal experience, I did not face challenges with the forces of nature, okay? But it taught me survival skills, which is related to the short story. But I can't say that totally there's no interference of forces of nature, because middle of the jungle, sometimes it rains and all that, but it's not as bad as compared to being in the sea. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you.
So it's a great experience, Doctor, from you.
Thank you.
So you have been through, this kind of hardship to
Yes.
survive.
Yeah.
Okay, so right, so that concludes our time together, and thank you so much to all of my guests today for the fruitful discussions, and may we see each other again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank
Bye.
you. And don't forget to support our movie from director Li Ping.
Okay, thank
And the
you.
actress too, Miss Shengnan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, is there any questions from the audiences?
Hi, any questions?
Yes, sleeping. Director
No.
Liping.
No questions.
Yeah, I think there's no questions from the audience.
I think this novel is very interesting, and everybody should to read it.
And I think there's some interesting part in the story which has no unclear meaning even until now. I keep on doing research, but I haven't found the clear meaning of it. Okay, for example, if you still remember, there's a guy right on the shore. So why is the guy on shore waving a black coat? Okay, they saw
Yeah,
them in the middle of the ocean, but why don't the people on shore send out to the boat and save them?
yeah,
And then the other one is why doesn't Crane use first person in the story since is in the story? Maybe the other audience also can think with us because until now we couldn't find the answers,
yeah.
right?
Thank you, Professor Nadra. Yeah.
Maybe we should do further research on this.
Okay. All right. Apparently, there's no question there, but I just want to maybe correct one thing about the narrative. The narrative is a short story. Yeah. It is not a novel. So even a novelette, which is a small novel, has like more than 50 pages. So if you look at the open book, it's 15 pages. It is an extended a short story, and because of the number of words, it doesn't qualify to be a novel, not even a novel. Yeah. Okay. The focus on the open boat would be the how nature is um, is cruel to human existence, and also is nature is not sympathetic towards men. So the idea of hope, you can actually, because before this, you have the the forum on waiting for Godot, and we talk about hope. Perhaps sort of refresh the audience memory and say, oh, we have listened to the issue on hope from waiting for Godot, and perhaps you can kind of like um, talk a little bit about in what way is the issue on hope here is different, or is it similar? Yeah, so in that way, your audience would be able to connect one text to another. And Nadra actually raised a very interesting question. Why the part where the people on the shore was waving at them, what does that mean? So I think perhaps during your discussion, maybe you raised that, Nadra, you raised that question, and perhaps in when you were discussing in to prepare for this forum, perhaps each or maybe one speaker would share his or her thoughts and say, well, but that's how I think, and then maybe throw it to the audience also. Yeah, so in that way, in when you are preparing for forum, you kind of like, okay, why don't we just, this is really an interesting fact. Why don't we just, why don't I just throw it to one of you guys, and maybe you will say, okay, but this is how I see it, and then you kind of like throw it to the audience and see, whether there's any response from the audience. Yeah, so I feel that the idea that life is a game, or maybe the idea that miscommunication, yeah, because they thought, because the men were waving, and they thought that the people on the shore have seen them, and they were saying, oh my god, they're going to save us, yeah, because that's what they were thinking, but but nothing happened. Yeah, so the idea of hope and belief, and thinking that things would get better, but in actual fact it doesn't. Yeah, so here a different take on hope from Waiting for Godot. So perhaps you can actually elaborate on that. Yeah, but I'm kind of like curious to actually see if you look at it in that event, the idea that maybe life is a game, and there is no surety in life, and also the idea that in modern days, the idea of miscommunication again, is highlighted very much similar to the issues in Waiting for Godot. Yeah, so perhaps in your reflection, maybe you can put that in and see where it will go. Yeah, so okay, we're going to stop for for a break, and then we'll come back. I think this is 7:32. We'll come back about 8. So be prepared to have the forum extend more than what is being planned for. Yeah, so I'll see you guys at 8. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Right.
Thank you, madam.